Okay, welcome back, everybody, to I Refuse to Fail and our 1530 networking event. And as most people in the room know, we always try to pick a topic that we feel might be interesting for people to learn from or to hear, our viewpoints on it or whatever. And today's topic is going to be on FOC, or fear of commitment. And I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, but I'll kick it off. But today's is going to be sponsored by Bill Dorr. And I'll just tell you what Bill Dorr does. The reason why I selected him to be one of the I Refuse to Fail partners is he is a master connector. He really connects people really well. He'll put you together with the right person, which is our whole goal, is putting people together. And I really think everybody should connect with Bill Dorr to find out what he does. So that being said, we're going to start it off. And what I mean by the fear of commitment, I've run into this since I've been networking, 2009, I guess, and doing business consulting, is that most salespeople have a problem. They go through a presentation, they might give a half hour, 45 minutes, they do a Q&A, and they think the person's ready to buy, and the person says, I need to think about it. I'll get back to you. I need to talk it over with somebody. And they just have a failure to commit. They have a fear of committing. And then you have to set up another appointment, and it's really difficult to make it close that way. I personally feel there's a solution to that can cut out about 98% of it. But I would like to hear what other people have experienced and what they might do to remedy stuff like that. Another part of this is RSVP. People have a fear to RSVP. I don't know what it is, but they don't want to commit to doing something, like even attending these events. A lot of people say, "Ooh, I'd like to go, but I don't want to commit to it." So I don't know what it is. It's a fair commitment. I'm sure it's a psychological thing, but we're going to move forward. And Bill, if you want to unmute, I think you had something you want to comment.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty short. This is my own field of experience, but I find a lot of times something will come along, it'll sound good, it'll sound interesting, helpful, whatever. And I'll click on it and go, yeah, let me do it. If I don't get the follow-up reminders, it's in the brain and on its way. And then, oh, damn, I missed that meeting I wanted to attend. I think a lot of it isn't so much the commitment issue. We're committed. The problem is our execution of our skill set to be organized enough to place it into a calendar and make sure that it gets on the schedule. That's just my experience with a lot of why people don't show up after they've made the initial attempt.
Yeah, that's really good. We're talking about the RSVP type thing, actually, where somebody says they want to attend something. And that's why when we started this group, we actually have a calendar where people can put it on there. They get 24-hour notice and a 2-hour notice, because I understand how, sometimes people have a good memory, but it's short. So they, so you're right. It probably isn't the commitment thing there. It's probably they're so busy doing other things that and attending other events that they forget about it. So, but I appreciate that. Santa.
Well, my sister used to be a salesperson trainer, and she said that one of the national statistics in the US is people are scared to ask the question. They do the sales presentation, like you said at the beginning. They do the sales presentation, they do the Q&A. People come to salespeople with a problem. It's as simple as that. If you can solve the solution, find the solution, then ask the question, do we have a deal? Most people are scared to ask the big question, do we have a deal? What's holding you back from making the deal?
I agree with you. And but not only is that an issue, I think that the salespeople sometimes have a fear of asking for a commitment. And sometimes this might be the first time you met them, might be the second, might be the third, but it should be on the meeting you're having where you planned on closing the deal. And there's nothing wrong with you setting the ground rules before you go through a half-hour presentation. Ask them, you know why we're here. If I can answer all your questions, are you ready to move forward? Because if you want to do it and it's right for you, obviously, we want to make sure it's right for you. That's great. Commit. If it's not, then just say, hey, look, it's not for me. And we'll figure out why it's not for you. And then I'll learn from that as well. But not making a decision is unacceptable. Can you agree to that, Mr. Jones, before we get started? Because I don't want to waste your time and you don't want to waste my time. And I've got a lot of people to see. So why not get that commitment? Because a lot of people will waste your time. They have no problem wasting your time. So that's my take on it from a sales aspect. And I found that it works quite well because you can get, and then in the beginning they said, well, I don't know if I'm going to have to talk it over with my wife, or I'm going to talk, why don't you get your wife and we'll get her on the call, or I'll answer all the questions that she has so that we don't have to go back and forth, because I know your time is valuable and my time is valuable. There's nothing wrong with asking for that commitment. And if you need the sale so bad that you're afraid that they might not allow you to do that by asking the commitment, then you have a bigger problem than they do. Okay. Because you're there to help them. If you've got something that's really good, then it should be a no-brainer that they can make that decision. Doesn't work all the time, but it increases your closing rate. Angie.
Yeah, one of the things that I see, especially with working with people with finances, is they'll commit and make a decision and then they're excited and they'll tell somebody, and then they let the thoughts of other people impact and say, oh, you want to work with a coach with your money? Like, why can't you do it yourself? Or they feel that shame and that lack of, I'm going to do what I want, but I'm going to disappoint all these other people. And so they're bringing factors into the decision that really don't belong there.
Are you talking about after they've made the commitment?
Yeah, after they've made the commitment, yep, we're ready to move forward. They'll be ready to go. And then it's like, oh, I told, so-and-so I was going to do this and they said I shouldn't do it. So I'm going to listen to them. And it's like, you've already made it clear what you want to do. You know that I can help you. You've seen the value. And now you're letting your fear and other people's opinions get in your way.
How often does that happen?
It doesn't happen too often, but I've seen it enough where it's something that can definitely skew with people. So now I've just done a better job of addressing that on the front end of my calls.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, look, if there's somebody else or you need to go with other people, why don't you do that before we get into the meat and potatoes? Or you can have them attend as well, because then you might get 2 sales out of it. Who knows? But the thing is, go ahead and answer those questions. But there's no 100% way. Even people that said they would commit are going to go back on what they said. We know that, right? But they weren't going to be clients anyway. I mean, when they tell you they got to think it over, basically what they're saying is, I don't want it. They just don't want to tell you that. Okay. Because if you were giving it away for free, they'd take it right then and there. It's usually because of the money. So anyway, Jeff.
Thanks, Carl. A couple of things came to mind when you brought up this topic. The first one is a better discovery period, where you're talking more about why you're on the call. If you're just asking them exactly what brought us together today, and they're going to tell you the problem, like Santa was saying, they came with a problem. If you can solve it, that's why you're there. If the problem is discovered to begin with, and said, how important is it that we solve this problem? And by the way, are you the only one in the decision-making process of getting this solved? And now you've determined, do you need the other person? And we haven't even gotten into presentation price or any of that. And if they're objecting at that point, yeah, maybe, goodbye. The other part of that is when you get to the point where they're saying, I got to think it over. Hey, fantastic. I know I didn't make you an expert in this period of time, but let me ask you this. What is it exactly you need to think about? Because while you got me here, let me answer those things. The other thing that I've learned is if you just gave them 15 reasons to move forward with you and say, yeah, I understand that. Just out of curiosity, what is it you're questioning? They got to come up with the reason that they don't want to do it. It's a lot harder to do when you just fed them 15 reasons to do it. And find out exactly what it is and say, great, how long is it going to take you to think about that item there? And get them committed. Somebody made a sale, whether it was you or them, is the important part to remember. They sold you on they don't have to talk to you again, or you sold them on whatever service, product, whatever it happens to be. So
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And basically, I guess what we're saying is pre-qualifying the people. Do a good job pre-qualifying. And if you pre-qualify them before you get into that, and get them to commit up front to make a decision, or not, it's going to save you a bunch of time and headaches. I mean, really, unless you just don't mind just giving presentation after presentation.
Well, and I've had the situation where they told me they were the decision maker and then came back with, well, I got to talk to my wife. At that point, I have no problem saying, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you told me that you were the decision maker on this. Is that not true? In other words, am I calling you a liar? And I don't have a problem putting him on the hot seat. That's, I know that surprises you, anybody who knows me, but.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty much the same. But when I first started off, I mean, it was like I was giving presentation after presentation. They were saying I got to think about it, and I was letting them think about it. And then they never got back to me, even though they said they were going to get back to me. And I'm thinking, I got to be doing something wrong. And I wasn't pre-qualifying them properly and getting them to commit. Now, that's not always the first time you meet them. Sometimes it might be the third time you meet them, because that's when you're doing your close. So this is not for the first time you meet with somebody. So it's the day that you want them to, they know why they're there, you know why they're there, and they should be able to commit or not even have the meeting, whatever. Rob. Rob, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just said to lower my hand, but so when I'm doing a presentation, basically, I'm going to be empowering them with the knowledge that's going to allow them to be able to make their decision. And I always get up front, do I have your word to be open and honest with me? You are allowed to say no. I tell them that they're allowed to say, no, this isn't for me. Then, hey, I told you can say no. Well, what's, bill it or kill it is my mentality. And I don't want to be chasing you around thinking that there's a potential for you to be interested in something, because it's okay. If this is not for you, it's okay. I'm okay with it. I want you to be open and honest and just say if that's the case. But all these other things of asking, are you the only one involved in the decision-making process, to a lot of the things that you were saying before, asking them or setting it up to where they can't hide behind an excuse is ultimately what you're trying to do before you give your presentation.
Yeah, and that's Rob, I agree with you. And that's why I said yes is great, no is fine, but not giving an answer is unacceptable. I mean, so let's get the terms down before we start to save both you and me time. But if I can answer all your questions and it makes sense to you, why wouldn't you want to proceed? So I agree with you 100%. That's good, Rob. Anissa.
So during the pre-qualifying time, I have found that it's great to say, are you looking for information? Is this a fact-finding mission? Is this where you're starting your shopping, or are you ready to truly make a move on this? Your time is valuable, my time is valuable, and I really like to try to spend my in-person time with folks who are ready to proceed and not the tire kickers. And so if you're ready to proceed, then let's go ahead and schedule a time. If not, I have recorded information that I can send to you to start your information search process.
Yeah, that's good. And that goes right back to whether it's a one and done sale type deal where you're meeting one time and you are going to close, or whether it is a fact finding and that nobody's making a sale, to give them the opportunity to think it over, talk with people. But whatever, when you're going to meet with them to do a close, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4th time, whatever it takes, they should be able to make a decision. Yes, no, period. So I agree with you 100%. That's good. Carolyn.
Thanks. Well, for those of us that can, giving a free sample or free trial is always a great thing when people are hesitant about money usually is that. And then, but another thing is learning what it is that's holding them back. And if you have a testimonial or person to whom you can connect them, where your products or services help them, and they initially had the same maybe hesitation, so then they can hear it from somebody else. But I also have a question for y'all. Do you put on because a one-to-one is different than a sales call.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes, how many of us we've shown up to a one-to-one and we were like, whoa, this is a sales call. It's a little bit of a surprise. Do you have different choices for the initial pre-qualifying of someone's getting on your calendar and because they want information, and it's more like a sales talk versus, get to know me kind of thing?
I think, that's another whole topic we can talk about But at 1-to-1, especially if it's from a networking meeting and you're setting up a 1-to-1, it should never be a sales call. It's none, ever, period. It should only be getting to know each other and learning about what each of you do. And seeing if you can help them with that or anything else they may have an issue with, or connecting them with somebody else. That just helps you when you do get to the point where they say, well, what is it you do with For My Card, Carolyn, and oh, well, we can talk about that too another day, and then you set up a meeting for that, and and then you do your fact finding, and whether it's a one and done and close, or whether it's going to take 2 or 3 times. And as you were saying, if you can give out something, that's fine, but that's the first call where, hey, let me give you one of these, you try it out, but before you make a decision, let's talk again, so that you have that opportunity to close. So it still comes down to pre-qualifying, no matter what methodology you're using in your sales. So let's see, Mike.
All right, there's always a trade-off between that sales temperature as their eagerness and their readiness. Sometimes the trade-off. You get on a call with somebody, you just get to know each other. And I always want to add value and say, they talk about this. Sometimes they'll throw, I've been working on this presentation. I have a hard time explaining this, so I don't know how to do that. And it comes up. I mean, if you're having the right conversation, it'll come up. And then you kind of offer something and they say, ooh. And I always make the analogy, at what point do you pull back the couch cushions and kind of, so there's always that trade-off of, okay, do we talk more about it now when you're not quite, and just see where it goes? Or do you say, hey, you're really excited about this, let's hop on another call so I can sell you? And how do you make that transition from casual conversation to an actual sales call without it being, hey, look, I'm going to sell you next time?
Well, that goes into sales training. Okay. And that's a whole another topic. Okay. We're talking about one aspect of making a sale. I don't know how many times I've sat across from someone. I say, give me your sales pitch, so to speak. And they give me their sales pitch, and I stop them and I say, you know what? All your words sound great, but your body language is telling me, I'm sure, Carl, you don't want this, but I sure hope you do. But you can't make a sale that way. Okay. So so that's another whole aspect of it. So in your first meeting, when you're meeting somebody, it could be just a get to know you meeting. Okay. Let's find out who you are, build that rapport, and then somebody says, well, geez, Mike, I'd like to know more about this. Well, is that something you're interested in? If it is, I can give you a presentation. And if you think you might be ready to go, then yeah, I'll be happy to have that meeting with you. And then when you have that, they know why they are there. They know that they're there to potentially proceed with what you're doing. Okay. It's kind of like picking up the item off the shelf. They have made a commitment. They're going to go to the front and they're going to pay for it. If they change their mind on the way, then they're going to put it on the shelf. That's when they're decided to think about it. But they've made a decision either to do it or not to do it. There's none of this business of, well, maybe, or I'll get back to you. They're going to make a decision. But that's just one aspect of that. And I'd be happy to help you with that other aspect, the other parts of that, but not in today's topic. So, Jeff.
I happen to think of one other expression you'd have to kind of tone down maybe for your own pitch and so forth. If they say, if you just can't get past that, I need to talk to my spouse. I said, well, let me ask you a question. I learned this back a long time ago in my solar days, where you said, over 20 years, you're saving them $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 on their solar from their electric bill. I said, well, let me ask you a question. If your spouse came to you and said that they had looked into something that was going to save you $30,000 over time, would you trust their decision and support them in their decision? It's really hard for somebody to say, no, not really. I don't trust my spouse. It doesn't work that way. Now, if anybody here is looking to get out of a sales pitch and get done with it, the best way I have found, I need to pray about it. It's real tough to get God involved in the decision-making process and try and talk about it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, you could even pre-qualify and say, I really think you ought to talk to God about this before we get into this today. But anyway, Anissa.
So I'd like to address the RSVP aspect of your question. And a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I worked in direct sales, network marketing. I worked for Longaberger and Southern Living at Home, where I did parties. And I found that 33% of the hostesses list never showed, never RSVP'd, what have you. However, if I planned the party at 6:57 to start, people would show. People who didn't RSVP, they would automatically show and they would be there on time. So not only was I getting more people to show, they were showing on time, to the point where they thought they were getting something for free because they were showing up on time and I could start the party on time. No, there was no free gift because you showed up. Hello, where's your manners? However, it got people in seats. Now, one of the reasons I first came to this group was because when it was presented to me, it started at 1:45 Central Time for me. That is not 2 o'clock. Everybody else starts on the hour. But this started at 1:45. Oh, that's different. This is going to be a different group because they don't do what everybody else does. They start at a different time. And I was sure as shit going to be here, excuse my language. I was going to be here at 1:40, 1:45 to be here because I wanted to see how this group was different.
Yep, and that's why I did it. But and of course, after people know what the situation is, now that you've let the cat out of the bag, sometimes they don't show up until 3. But I need to be a little bit tougher with that. Okay. And because I really think, I always tell people, if you're on time, you're late. Okay. So, you need to show up on time. I would hope that people, when they are setting an appointment to sell something, that they're on time. Okay. Let's meet at 3 p.m. so that I can sell you this. And then you show up at 3:30. Unacceptable. Okay. So why would you disrespect everybody else by showing up late? So, I need to probably pull that in. It's a good reminder, Anissa, to, make people or do something to get people to show up on time. I understand people are late. They have other things going and they show up late, and that's okay. Not that I'm not going to let them in, but we got to come up with something. So,
well, what is the start time? Is it 1:45 or is it 2?
Well, with you, it's 1:45, but basically I do it at 1:45 and then I allow people time to get in, because if everybody's noticed, this is getting off track here on our subject really, but the reason why I do that is to allow people time to get in, because I know notoriously people don't show up at right on time, or even before. They show up late, and I don't know what the reason is. I've always had this thing. It really bothers me if I'm not on time or early. Okay, that's just me. But anyway, but I do appreciate that. Louise.
Well, I was just going to say that I think there's a generation issue with the RSVP. I mean, I'm planning a party for my son, and I keep asking for, I put on the invitation that RSVP. Well, everybody older than me has RSVP'd, and everyone my son's age and younger has not. So I think, and even when I was talking to them about it, they said, well, that's so old fashioned. You don't have to do that anymore. I'm like, it is proper etiquette, and they just don't want to listen to me. And so I think there's a whole generation disconnect on the RSVP.
Yeah, you may be right. That could be it. Of course, I've seen it happen with everybody, regardless of the age. But what I used to say, just to kind of get a dig in, but when they come in late, say, oh, geez, you missed the drawing for the free car. Well, next week when you're here on time, maybe you'll win the free car. So, but that's just me letting them know that they need to be here on time without saying, why weren't you here on time? But anyway, all right. Does anybody else have anything else to comment? Otherwise, we're going to stop the recording. We're going to post this sucker, and hopefully you all will spread it. Hey, I'd like for you to put it on your LinkedIn if you have one. When you see one of these videos or whatever, it helps us help other people, and they might even want to come to one of the events and join us in one of these conversations, because we're going to have a different topic every week. So with that, I appreciate everybody who commented, and I look forward to the rest of you commenting on things as time goes on. If it involves you, if you have a comment on it, But I'm going to stop the recording and we'll be done for this episode.